As I kick off this quest for 400 roller coasters, the question inevitably comes up, what do you call a roller coaster, and what do you count, and how do you keep track? So as I'm starting off this quest for 400 coasters, it occurred to me that there's a lot of people who have a lot of different definitions and understandings of what a roller coaster is, and how do I count, what do I count, how do I keep track of it? So I thought it would be a good idea just to kind of lay out a definition of what a roller coaster is and isn't, how I keep track of it, and some of the fuzzy ground because it's not as cut and dried as you might think it is. First, what is a roller coaster? I actually have a three-part definition, and it has to fit all three of these to be a roller coaster. And I'll talk about each, and then I will talk about exceptions to them and questionable ones. And then at the end, I'll show you how I keep track. So the very first one is the second part of the word, coaster. It has to be powered by gravity for at least a portion of the ride, hence a coaster. If a ride is under electric power the whole way, or some other means of propulsion for the entire ride, it's not a coaster. It's got to actually coast, to roll freely, to be powered by gravity at some point. And if it doesn't, then it's not a roller coaster, just simply by definition. That seems pretty cut and dried, pretty easy, right? Yeah, there are times when it's not, but I'll get to those. But that's the first part. It has to coast. Number two, it has to roll the entire ride on wheels. So this is the roller part of it. Roll on wheels the entire ride. Exceptions can be made for a lift, but even there, the wheels have to be in constant contact with the track. And they have to remain in the same relation to the track throughout. So you can't suddenly change where the track is in relation to the car. You can't change the axles, for example, and put them from the bottom up onto the top. It doesn't work that way. It does allow for coasters with elevator lifts or changes, such as powder keg, where you change from one track up to another, but you're still in constant contact with that track. However, it does eliminate certain drop rides. For example, the old first generation Intamin drop rides. You may know them as the Edge, Daredevil Dive, Dive Devil, things like that. Where basically you were in kind of a squarish car and it would push you to the back of a tower. You would go up and you're in contact with the back of the tower. Then it pushes you out. You're not in contact anymore. And then you come in contact again as you drop. And then once you're on the bottom, it actually changes. Instead of on the back of the car, then you change. Now all of a sudden you're in contact with the bottom and the back is free. And so you actually change wheel positions and axles 3 times. Therefore, it's not a roller coaster because it doesn't stay in constant contact, and there's actually portions where it doesn't even roll. So I don't count those. So it's got to use the same set of wheels the whole entire ride. Number 3. You have to go somewhere. This eliminates a number of rides like the Larson fire loops that just go in a big circle, and actually they're powered the whole way anyways. Some of the ones that look like flat rides and they just stay in one spot, really. The robot arms are eliminated this way because you're still in the same place. It just kind of moves you around. So motion simulators are not roller coasters because you don't move anywhere. It's why X-Scream on top of the Stratosphere Tower is not a roller coaster. It's what it's called, a flat ride. Even though you roll, even though you're powered by gravity as it tilts, you're still basically in the same place. And so you might hang over and then you may roll backwards, and it's a teeter-totter. It's not a roller coaster. So, yeah, it moves on a track, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Versus a roller coaster that you leave a station and you go somewhere else, and then you come back to the station. You travel on a roller coaster. So that's kind of the 3 definitions of them. It has to roll, it has to coast, you have to go somewhere. Now, there are definitely rides that throw up all sorts of exceptions to this and cause confusion, and then you can't go, Using that as your basic definition of a roller coaster, here's how I apply it to some of the rides that are questionable and whether I count them or not. So for example, Blazing Fury at Dollywood and Fire in the Hole at Silver Dollar City. I don't count them. They're powered almost the entire way, and except for a very short little drop, they're basically powered coasters. And I don't count powered coasters because they don't really coast. So a lot of your kiddie rides, like the Dragon Wagon, that is powered the whole way around, I don't count those. They're not coasting. However, I do count kiddie coasters because size is not a limiting factor. There are some people that they limit by size. I don't. My rule about it has to go somewhere. It doesn't necessarily matter what it does when it goes somewhere. It just has to go. So a huge one is what's called Superman the Escape at Six Flags Magic Mountain. It launches you out of the station, you hit 100 miles an hour, you go straight up a tower 400 feet, and come back down. There are people that don't count this. The reason they don't count it, they don't really have a good explanation for why, other than it doesn't feel like a roller coaster. Well, it has propulsion, the wheels stay in contact in relation to the track the whole time. It coasts all the way up the tower, all the way back down the tower. It's a roller coaster. There's not any other definition that would eliminate it. Just because it doesn't have a loop, just because it doesn't have a turn, doesn't mean it's not a roller coaster. You've left the station and gone somewhere, you've rolled, you've coasted, you've been propelled. It's a roller coaster. Not only is it a roller coaster, it's two roller coasters because there's two of them side by side. I mean, if you count something like Montezuma's Revenge, which is a launch, a loop, a spike, and then backwards, okay, just because it doesn't have a loop, but it's a whole lot longer and a whole lot higher and a whole lot faster. It's not any different. It's still a roller coaster. Other ones that cause interesting discussions are the Journey to Atlantis at the SeaWorlds. You've got different versions in Orlando and in California. The one in Orlando is basically a flume ride. It's a boat ride the whole entire way, all through the ride, big drop, down the drop, up another little lift hill, and then after that little lift hill, there's a very short section of roller coaster track that all of a sudden you hit and you turn and you drop and that's it, and you're floating again. I don't count that one. It has a little roller coaster section, but it's not enough for me to consider it a coaster. However, the one in California has some longer extended versions of a roller coaster. In fact, two fairly long segments there. So that one I do count because in my mind it has enough track in it. Some people don't. That's okay. It's a personal opinion. It's kind of a fuzzy line. Do you count it? Don't you count it? Yeah, I count it. So, kiddie coasters, I count. Not everybody counts kiddie coasters. Racing coasters bring up another whole issue. You've got two sides of them and they travel separately. Do you count them as one or two? I count them as two. Unless they're what's called a Mobius coaster, like the racer at Kennywood, where you leave on one side, you come back on the other. It's one long continuous track, so it's one coaster if you ride both sides. But something like Twisted Colossus at Magic Mountain, that's one roller coaster. But the old Colossus, that was two separate tracks, that was two roller coasters because they were completely separate. Gemini at Cedar Point is two roller coasters because the red and the green are separate tracks. And you can close one side and the other side still operates just fine. It's its whole separate roller coaster. Just because they're built together doesn't mean they are the same coaster. I hope that kind of makes sense. I had somebody ask me about Forbidden Journey at Universal Studios because it does have a roller coaster track and you're on a coaster arm. It doesn't count because it's powered the whole way around. Yes, the arm's moving around. Yeah, it has a little bit of a feel like a roller coaster, but it never coasts. It's powered the entire way. So no, Forbidden Journey doesn't count. However, Hogwarts, where you're actually coasting at various points, that one gets more problematic. That one almost depends upon my mood. But it definitely has some spots where you are coasting. It has some spots, I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I've got it on my list or not. I should probably look at it. So why don't we look at the list? Yes, I actually do have a list. I keep track of every coaster I've been on in Microsoft Excel. And as you can see, it's got the number, it's got the park, It's got the name of the coaster. It's got the type of coaster it is. It's got the year that I wrote it. This is actually how I keep track of my coasters. And yes, it's a very, very nerdy thing. Sorry, I'm a nerd. But as you go down the list, here is when I visited Universal Studios, when Hogwarts was open, and you can see if I counted it or not. Right there. So there's the answer. Do I count it? Well, there you go. So what is my quest for 400 coasters? Well, you can see I've already got 341 right now. My quest for 400 is to make up that 59 coaster difference. Actually, I'd love to do more and break the 400 mark this year. And okay, really crazy, there's even a chance I could get 450. So I'm trying to visit all these parks I haven't been to, write a whole bunch of new coasters to me, and I'm going to be rating these coasters. I'm going to be adding on ratings for the drop, the speed, the intensity, the smoothness or roughness. I mean, does it beat you up or not? And then just plain fun. Is it a fun ride? And I'll total all those up and give you my idea of what I think the coaster is. Is it a great coaster? Is it a good coaster? Is it mediocre? Or is it one to avoid? So we'll have a little bit of fun. It's not really favorites, but it'll give you an idea of kind of how I pick out my favorites and which ones I like more than others and break them up into tiers. Kind of like grades. A, B, C, D, E, and just plain F. So that's how we're going to roll with it this year. Am I going to make it? Am I going to break it? And which coasters am I going to hit? And I'll even rate the ones that I've been on before. How's that for cool? So join me for my quest for 400 and watch as I add on the coasters. So do you know some coaster nerds who have arguments over what is a roller coaster, what isn't a roller coaster? I'd love to hear your definitions and their definitions too. Please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to hit that like button, share the video in those other roller coaster circles. This is an ongoing debate and discussion, and I would love to hear the discussion stirred up by it. If you share it somewhere, let me know so I can join in. Thank you too for subscribing. Thank you to my patrons and my YouTube members. Their financial support is making this crazy year and making the Coaster Quest 400 possible. If you want to join me on it, if you'd like to meet me at the parks, or if you'd like to be one of the supporters, which does have perks, be sure to check the description below and watch my events page on Facebook, which will tell you where I'm going. Speaking of my patrons, I also want to give a huge shout out to Nia Tahonen, and I hope I said your name right, who just recently increased her pledge as well. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching. God bless. Cat hairs. Ugh. And in the same relative, and they have to, it does allow for coasters with elevator lifts, like, you may know it as the, turtle, go away! So for example, Blazing Fury at Dollywood and Fire in the Hole at, so for example, oh my goodness, stupid hairs. The one in Orlando has, it's basically, the one in Orlando, I can't talk on this stupid thing. However, the one in California has a couple of very long, however, Hogwarts, the journey, however, the, oh my goodness. Thank you so much for liking. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to know about contact information, fan pages, merchandise, and more, please be sure to check the description below. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to know when I have new ones, well, make sure you hit that subscribe button right up there. And if you want to see another one of my videos, well, I've got a great one for you right here. And a huge thank you to these wonderful people here who support me on Patreon and with YouTube memberships. They get behind the scenes information, special perks, and more. If you'd like to know more about that, well, make sure you check that button right there. Thank you so much.